Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Welcome back to part 2 of working on my bog forest, a mixed forest of native larch and native black spruce. In part 1 of this series, I cleaned up the landscape, I picked out all the weeds, and I removed all the needles that had fallen down from the trees. So today I'm going to begin the process of pruning up the trees. There's a lot of new trees that I planted in the forest this year to kind of fill the forest out, and I haven't done much pruning on those new trees yet. So today I'll be tackling those trees for the first time, and I'll be pruning up all the other trees, creating a better and better structure for them. There is a lot of trees in this forest, and it's a big task to prune them all up. So I always begin with the most obvious areas, so branches that are sticking way out of the profile, trees that I've let grow, I can prune those back first. So I always start with the obvious items that need correction, and then I kind of whittle and refine down until I've done as much work to the trees as I can at this particular time. I'll begin by spinning the forest around, and you can see at the back of the forest here, I have a new tree here that I just let grow. So I'll need to prune that back to keep it in this sort of asymmetrical triangular profile of the forest. So that's where I'll begin on this tree right here. I'm having a look at this new tree, and it has several low branches here that you can see are growing upwards, and they're interfering with the tree beside it. I like having low branches on these forest plantings because it makes it look very natural, but I don't want them to the point where they're interfering with the trees beside them. So I'm going to do some pruning. And there's one growing right out of the base of the tree near the soil level here. I'm going to start by removing that. It's just too low. So that comes off. The next one isn't the worst branch in the world, but I could prune the top off it. I've got some good budding around this area, so I'll just take the tip off that branch. And there's one growing in back towards the tree. I'll remove that one also. So just pruning that branch up. There's another low one here. And again, I have some good branching down here, so I'll take the top off this one. And anything pointing back in towards the center of the tree I take out. So all my branches are fanning out from the center of the tree. I've got another really low one here that's growing right from the ground level, and it's kind of interfering with the lower branches on the tree beside it. So I can either prune it right away or prune it back, and I've actually got two branches growing there. So I think in this case I'm going to remove the one down low here. That one can come off. And then the next one, I think I'll just prune it back. So I'll take the top off right here and remove any branches growing back in towards the center of the tree, like that. So that cleans that up. Now there is another branch here up above it that I think I could prune this tip back like that, and this tip's already been pruned back once, so I'll just leave that. There's a branch, the tree beside it has a branch growing up, and it's directly in line with the tree beside it, and I have other branches fanning out down low, so I'm going to take that one off just to give a bit more room between the trees. And you can see it's still filled out down low. It still looks very natural. There's another branch growing up beside it here. This one, that's getting very tall, and I have a bud on the outside. I have several here, so I can at least take the tip off that branch and keep it a little more compact. So this new tree here, you can see it's very tall. Here is my kind of triangular profile. So I can take the top off that tree it's done its work, so off it comes. Taking the whole top off. And you can see I've got a cluster of branches that form the apex here. There's another branch here that's getting very long. It's growing out, hitting the tree beside it. So I'm looking for buds. There is one back here, so I can take the tip off. And you can only do so much each year on these trees. You can't be in a rush to, you know, have perfect structure in the trees right away. It takes time. I'll take this upwards growing one off and cut this one back, flattening out that branch a bit. So that gets that. There's another branch growing up off of this tree, and you can see it's growing up, you know, out of the profile. So I'm looking for buds on that one, and I can prune it right back to there, taking that tip off. The tree beside it has a very vigorous shoot here that I can remove entirely. I've got buds at the base of it, so that can come off. So you can see that it's improved these trees already. Here, off this branch, I've got a vertical shoot, and it's growing very strongly, so I'm going to remove that entirely. Like that. Making the tree a little more compact. So I think that's got the rough work on that tree done, and I may come back to it and improve the structure. But again, I'm tackling all the major areas first. So let's rotate back to the front now and have a look at this tree. This tree is a new one, and I replaced my dead trees that I planted in this forest on purpose with living trees. The dead trees, they would eventually rot away at the base and that. So I thought I'm going to replace all my dead trees with living trees. So that's what I've done. And I want this tree to grow tall. I actually want this tree to be the largest tree in the planting, kind of completing this asymmetrical profile. So either the tallest tree, so the profile goes down here, or, it'll be in between these two. So I don't want to prune the top. I want this tree to get very vigorous, thicken up fairly quickly, so I'm not going to prune off this tall leader. I do have a lot of buds on here which will create branching in this area, which will be nice. So that's one thing I can just, leave. I don't need to touch. So let's go to this end tree here. This end tree right here, it was always very funny looking, and you can see it still is. It's not a very good conical shape. It's improving, but it's not the same style as all the other trees. And I have this lowest branch here that I've kept, and I'm wondering if I should keep it or not. I think it's not bad looking. Yeah, I think I kind of like it. It makes this tree a little different, and I'll continue to try and get the conical shape on the top, and this will be sort of like a side branch. You see this a lot on spruce, that a side branch will suddenly reach up for the light and create kind of those cathedral trees, or a cathedral branch. So I'm going to keep that. I am going to prune off this shoot that's on the inside here, and I'm going to prune off this one which is sticking up, and clean up a stub here. And then I've got one kind of coming back in towards the center of the tree here. I'll take out a vertical one here I can remove. There's one growing back in towards the tree here. And then I've kind of got a cluster of branches in this area. Let's have a look at it. So here is that cluster of branches, and I want to thin it out, so I'm only keeping my best branches. So this one is kind of funny direction. It doesn't flow nice, so I'm taking that little one out. And then I've got I think this one will be my leader, so I can prune, tip off this one. Like that. So I still have a lot of branches here. I'll take off this weak one here. Take that one out. There's some old needles I can remove here just to clean up the tree a bit. And I think I'll take out this one totally. I pruned it back, but I'm going to take it out. I've got too many branches here. So I have a leader, a side branch, front branch, and a back branch. So it's still too many. So I think I'll take out this back one. Like that. I think that's good. I'm stepping back now, having a look at the profile of the forest. So originally I wanted the front trees to have a triangular profile, and the apex was like here, and then it tapers down. And then the back trees, I wanted the highest point on the triangular profile to be offset, so maybe more over here. And I'm wondering if I'm achieving that. It's more everything is coming to a point here. So I definitely think this tree could be taken back shorter to kind of help that profile. It sticks up a bit high here. And maybe this tree back here could be reduced a bit. The profile kind of comes up. It's pretty tough to offset that until this one maybe grows up. So I have the highest point here and the other one is back here. So I think that's something I'll have to work on, but I could definitely reduce this tree back. It's getting too high. So here is the tree. I'm looking at it. I have a very strong vertical shoot coming up here that I do not want as my apex, so I'm taking it off. So that comes out. And then I have a branch here that starts in the front and it kind of crosses the trunk line, so I'm going to remove that also. And it's very vertical. The apex here, I have a bud here, so I can at least take it off to this point, like that. I have a dead branch at the back I'm going to remove, like that. I have another vertical shoot coming off one of these back branches that I'm also going to remove, like that. You can see that's slimming out the apex of the tree. There's a branch here, I've got a bud here, I can take it safely back to there. And this one, I've only got a bud here, there's nothing else on the branch, so I can't really do too much at this point in time on that branch. There's a branch here that's kind of crossing the design, it's not flowing, so I'm going to remove it. There's one sticking up here I'm going to take out, creating a bit of space between the branches. It's a bit congested at the moment. There's a vertical one right here coming off this branch I can remove, like that, again creating negative space between the branches. And that's important to create that miniature look. You don't want it looking like, you know, it was just pruned like a hedge to a conical form. You want to see the individual branches. There's a little one in here I can take out. There's one here coming off of this branch that's kind of crossing the design. I'm going to remove that. There is actually, I noticed there is a bud on this one, so I can take the tip off like that. There's something happening here. I think it's a dead branch. I'm going to remove it. Yeah. A lot of lichen in this area that I'm going to have to clean out too. So it's just a matter of looking at each branch and kind of working on it. Here's one here. I've got a vertical shoot I can prune away. Very strong bud. Here, shooting straight upwards, I'm going to take out. There's the remains of a dead branch here. I'm going to prune out. Again, kind of cleaning out that structure. Here I've got this branch divides from 1 to 3 here. And I think I'm going to prune out the one sticking straight out the front. Like that. I've got a fairly long branch here, and I'm looking for buds on it. I have one back there further, so I can prune it off here. This branch here is fairly long. I've got a bud in here, so I can take the tip off. Like that. So you can see the conical form is improving on this. I haven't reduced the height a whole lot, but again, you can only do so much with each pruning. It's a long-term process, and you have to be patient and very selective. So I've got one sticking up here that I think can get pruned away like that. I think I can take this tip back further there, cleaning it out. I've got a vertical one back in here I'm going to remove. Okay, so that tree's looking quite nice. It looks conical, it's fairly tight, and I've reduced the height. So in spring, if I get all kinds of good growth coming out here, I may be able to replace this apex with something down lower if I want to reduce that even further. I'm out the back of the planting now, and here's a tree where you can see the top of it is getting very bushy and ball-like. So I need to definitely thin it out, do some branch selection on here. Wow, there's a cluster of buds in here. Yeah, it's quite thick here. I kind of left this a little too thick and congested, and you can see it's starting to create a bulge there. So yeah, I've got to do some pretty ruthless pruning in this area, otherwise it's just going to keep getting worse. Okay, well, I think that's sorted out not too bad, and again, I may come back to it. I'm trying to work on all the the major areas first, and then I'll come back and do some refining. But I think that certainly helped that area. I'm going to work on the rest of the spruce, pruning them up, and you can see how long it took me just to do the top of this tree, and I have so many trees in this forest and so many branches, so I'm going to work away at it. And how long it takes me isn't really important. I always try and do what's best for the tree, and you can't think, well, I've got to get this all done this afternoon. Bonsai doesn't work like that. You work away at the trees, trying to improve each tree, and if it takes you 2 days, 3 days, that's fine. It needs that kind of detailed work to really make the tree shine. If you don't do the detailed work, then you end up with a lot of problems for the future that you may or may not be able to sort out. So yeah, I'm just going to work away at the trees and take my time, study each tree and prune it up the best it can look at this point in time. I have finished what I would call round 1 of the pruning on the spruce. So I pruned very safely, pruning back to visible buds. So all the branches, you know, are pretty well guaranteed to survive. Here is what I took off so far. So a few kind of major branches, but mostly just small branches and tips. And there's a look at the forest now. So it's improved. However, I'm still not happy with some of the trees. You can see this one, it's kind of bushy up top. It doesn't really have a tight conical form. Some of them do, like this one's pretty good. This one's not bad. But some are a little, you know, a little wide. So I'm going to have to go in and do a profile prune on them. So I'll have to come in with my scissors. And it is a little risky, but something will survive. And just kind of shear the tips back like that, shearing it. And it generally, they generate back buds pretty good, these spruce. So you can see that's already, you know, a better conical form. And I've also have to do this because you can see the trees are starting to grow into each other, so I have to tighten the conical form up to get space between all the trees. So that is my objective now, is some profile pruning to the trees just to get them back in check. And there is a danger, you know, with this, that I may get some branches die off, but you can see right now they're quite full looking. They almost look like Christmas trees. And by shearing it, you know, if a branch dies off, it'll open up negative space in the canopy and help create a more realistic appearance. You can see on this tree, there's some areas where some thicker branches died back in here and then new ones sprouted, and it looks much more mature and realistic, this tree, versus like this one back here. Yeah, so that's my next step, profile pruning. All right, here I go. So I am going to start on these back trees. So kind of flipping it around and just, yeah, pruning it back. I've had good success with this kind of pruning in the past. And, you know, you have to do it. If I prune back to visible buds only, the trees will get larger every year. So I'm kind of, you know, kind of forcing the tree to back bud or perish, one of the two. And hopefully it won't be perish. Hopefully they'll back bud. And it should. They were nice and healthy. I let them grow quite nicely over the summer. I didn't keep them, you know, tightly pruned at all times. I let them have periods of growth. And yeah, they gain vigor, and then you cut them back and they recover, grow again, gain vigor. And you keep repeating that process, and you keep your trees healthy and shaped at the same time. Well, maybe not at the same time, but you keep them in control so they don't get too far out of hand. This is a very similar process to how they shape Christmas trees, in that conical form. Branch selection, tip pruning. So I'm not shearing, the entire tree back. I'm just mainly in the apex here where it's most vigorous. The lower branches I'm not touching much. And these ones are pretty new trees here, but they can still be shaped to a degree. Smells good too. Smells like Christmas. So the trees have the entire winter. I'll keep them here in the greenhouse where they'll stay generally above freezing, and they should generate a lot of new buds on the branches before spring. If you did this work in spring, they don't have time to generate their spring buds to back bud. So I would always recommend, you do this work on your spruce before spring comes. If these trees get too heavy on top, it starts shading out the lower branches and you start getting dieback down lower. So it's kind of important to keep them, pruned in this conical shape so that every branch gets light. Okay, it is coming along quite nicely. Just gonna step back and see if there's any trees that stand out as being too wide. Maybe a little more off this one back here. This one could be slimmed down a bit more. Ooh, getting into the danger zone. Definitely. Okay, I think that better be it. That's quite a pruning on these spruce. Yes, okay. I'm going to call the spruce done. And then, so the next thing to look for in spring, you'll get all kinds of buds forming on the branches. And then you can go in and do another pruning based on those new buds, which is quite an important pruning, because if you don't take advantage of your back buds, then the growth just gets weak in there and dies off, and just the tip buds extend. So you've got to look for those back buds and then prune back to them once they've developed enough that there's no danger of killing them off by pruning the end of the branch off. You've got to let them harden off a little bit. Yeah, so that's kind of an important step. Take advantage of those back buds to keep the trees even more compact. This forest is a mixed forest. It's got spruce and larch. So we can't forget about the larch trees. So I like to prune larch in spring when the buds are swelling and turning green. That way you know the bud is alive and the branch is going to develop. There's no point, pruning a branch up if the buds are dead on it, because you'll lose the whole branch. However, what I'm going to do today is prune off any obvious branches. Like there's some sticking way up here. There's some big long branches. So any obvious branches that I wouldn't use anyway, I'm going to prune today on the larches. And then all the fine detail pruning of them will be left until spring. I was thinking I still have the larch to prune up, and I want to work on the landscape some more. So It's already getting late in the afternoon and I notice it's getting darker out already. So I think I will continue working on this tree in part 3 of this series. And I think this is a good place to stop. I've pruned up the black spruce and tomorrow I'll start with the larch and then finish off the landscape. So that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.